Have you ever felt that? That quiet tension inside? That little tug of war between two really powerful ideas? On one hand, you're told, hey, be the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. But on the other, there's this deep feeling that some things are just meant to be. Well, today, we're going to dive right into that very question using a really helpful framework compiled by Mirali Shah for the Inner Horizon podcast.
I mean, this is the big one, isn't it? It's the question that kind of hums under the surface of our biggest decisions and our quietest moments. Are we the authors here, looking at a blank page? Or are we more like actors, just playing a part in a story where the ending's already been decided? And what's so wild is how both of these ideas they're everywhere in our culture. So on one side, you've got pure agency. The idea that you are the author, you shape your life, you become what you work for. And then on the other side, we find this real comfort in the idea of destiny, that some things are already written and what's for you will find you. They both feel true, don't they? But they're in total opposition.
So to deal with this conflict, most of us just tend to pick a side. We kind of collapse all that complexity into one of two really simple, but ultimately flawed answers. And as we're about to see, choosing one extreme over the other, it just leads to a way of living that is totally unsustainable, both psychologically and spiritually. So here are the two camps. First, you've got the total control mindset. This is the belief that every single thing that happens in your life is a direct result of what you did. It's that I create everything philosophy. And then you have the complete opposite, the total surrender mindset, which basically says, it's all written anyway, so my effort doesn't really matter in the end. And look, both of these are a trap. Let's take a closer look at that total control path. Now, it sounds super empowering, right? But it's actually a recipe for anxiety. When you believe you're responsible for everything, you end up carrying the weight of the entire world on your shoulders. And that inevitably leads to burnout. And when things go wrong, and they always do, it just crushes you with this deep, personal sense of shame and failure.
Okay, so what about total surrender? You might think this is the more peaceful way to go, but really, it's often just stagnation disguised as patience. It leads to passivity, to just watching amazing opportunities drift right by. And over time, that can build this quiet resentment for a life that feels stuck, all because we gave up our role in shaping it.
So if both extremes are unsustainable, is there another way? The answer is yes, and it's this incredibly sophisticated model that's actually existed in Islamic theology for centuries. It suggests that reality isn't flat, it's layered. It's a way to hold both of these truths, your own power and a sense of destiny at the very same time. So here's the framework in a nutshell. It suggests that the outcomes in our lives operate on three different levels. First up, you have the fixed layer. That's the stuff outside of our control. Then there's the responsive layer, which is dynamic and directly influenced by what we do. And finally, the expanding layer, where outcomes can actually grow beyond what we ever expected.
All right, so the most important thing is to start with this fixed layer. Think of these as the initial conditions of your life. You didn't choose where you were born, your early environment, or the timing of major world events, right? In theology, this is known as qadar, or divine decree. And accepting this isn't failure, it's just realism. It frees you from the anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable.
Now we move into the responsive layer. This is the arena where most of life actually happens, and it is incredibly dynamic. This is where your agency, your power comes into play. The outcomes here shift and change based on your effort, your choices, your consistency. This layer is exactly why your actions matter so much.
And this verse from the Quran just brilliantly illustrates the whole principle of the responsive layer. It is so clear. It confirms that there is a direct link between our striving and what we get. Now, it doesn't promise a specific outcome, but it guarantees that our effort is the absolutely essential ingredient.
And finally, we have the third and maybe the most subtle layer, the expanding layer. This is where we see things happen that seem to be more than the sum of their parts, what some people might call grace, or in Arabic, barakah. It's that unexpected opportunity, that help that just arrives out of nowhere right when you need it. This framework suggests this isn't random, but it's a kind of nonlinear return that's linked to things like our ethics and our generosity.
So what's absolutely fascinating to me is how this ancient spiritual wisdom finds all these echoes in modern psychological research. The core idea that connects them is this: true trust, real surrender, it isn't passive. It's an active state, and you've got to act first.
This famous prophetic saying just captures the idea perfectly. Tie your camel, then trust. I mean, what a beautifully practical metaphor. You do everything in your power, you take the very real practical step of securing your camel, you do your part. Then, and only then, do you release the outcome and trust in a power that's greater than yourself.
And just look at how this maps onto modern science. The fixed layer, well, that really resonates with the idea of an external locus of control. The responsive layer is the perfect antidote to learned helplessness, because it proves our actions do create change. And the expanding layer mirrors something like complexity theory, where tiny positive inputs can lead to huge, unpredictable effects. It's a truly interactive model of reality.
So, okay, what does all this actually mean for us in our day-to-day lives? Well, it means we have to reframe our entire approach. It's all about understanding our role in the script of life, a role that demands we shift from asking these passive questions to taking active responsibility.
This right here is the crucial shift. The next time you find yourself wondering, oh, is this written for me? Just stop. Ask yourself a more honest, a more challenging question. Am I avoiding action right now? Am I using the idea of destiny as a convenient excuse for my own fear of moving forward?
And here is the core insight to really take away from all this. More often than not, that feeling of being blocked, that feeling that fate is against us, it isn't some external barrier at all. It's our own internal resistance to using the power, the agency that we already have.
So in the end, we learn to live right there in that tension. We learn to act with our full capacity, but without the illusion that we can control every single outcome. We learn to trust deeply without ditching our personal responsibility, because you're not writing the entire script, but you are not just a passive reader either. You are an active co-creator in your own story, and that, right there, is where your true power lies.